YouTube, what's good? It's your boy, Father Harris, aka the Crazy Uncle. Hey, guess what? It's your first time tuning in. Go ahead. Hit doggone subscribe button. Hit notification bell every time I post up new content. So, listen, people. Hit notification bell. The 1970s or Generation X. If you, go, y'all look at the title. The smartest and the most don't give a damn. I meant to say group. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me go back and do this right fast. Most don't give a damn group ever. I could have just left it like how it was, right? And yeah, I'd been like, okay, well, motherfuckers, y'all know what the fuck I'm talking about here. But I say that, because y'all hear me say it all the time, right? April 1st, 1973. I'm probably, a lot of people want to say that the baby boomers was the greatest generation. I beg to differ. Yeah, y'all did what y'all did, but goddamn it, Generation X, the unknown motherfuckers. You don't know what what Forrest Gump said, like life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what the fuck you gonna get. And so for the most part, that's how I like to think that Generation X is. With that box of chocolates, you don't know what the hell we're gonna look like. You don't know what the hell we're gonna taste like. But just know, once you open up the box, you're gonna want to try every bit of chocolate in that box. And 9 times in 10, it's probably gonna make you sick. But do we give a damn? Hell to the no. So the reason why I did this because today, it's like, Bug, go ahead, you can say it's early Sunday afternoon, evening, whatever the fuck you actually really want to call it, right? So I cut the grass, I cut the grass, swept them out, whatever, did a little laundry, whatever. So now it's time to relax. So you go going through YouTube, seeing what's on there, and then came up with some very interesting videos, and this grant, right? This ain't the first time that stuff like this that has come across, and I was like, yeah, I remember those days. But today I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna, because I figure like, okay, well, let me put in my 2 cents, because granted fact, what the people that talked about, yes, we did that back in the 70s. But to be perfectly honest with you, right? Everybody can't catch everything that actually really happened. What we did as kids in the 1970s, some of them had come close, right? But I just feel like a lot got missed out. Yes, we did the double dutch. Yes, we played kickball out in the street. We also played football out in the street. That corner of Maryland and Maple, mostly Maryland, is where all the excitement happened. The girls that were playing double dutch, if they wasn't cheerleading for us, actually out there and they little and a little short on, hide and seek. Yes, some of us would play hide and seek. some of us would actually really play hide and go get. I mean, put like this, you, especially if there was a girl that you was liking, right, and then you try to follow her where she went, and then you really didn't. You already know you weren't gonna get caught because due to circumstances or whatever, and so so you already knew when nobody gonna come, right, or whatever. And she play with your little PP, you play with a little booty or whatever, and then hey, it is what it is, right? So and then because I can tell you some shit, we played hide and go seek, and then we played some shit that was rather dangerous. Again, on that corner of Maple and Maryland. And then, every once in a while, I still go back, since I've been back home, roughly 5 years and change now, the wife and I, we'll go back and we'll go visit the old neighborhood. Some of the houses still stands. Unfortunately, the house that I stayed in is no longer there. A bigger and better house is there now, but I bet you, even though I ain't been in that new house, I bet you I already know how the layout is. I know the front door, the living room is still right there, which is what they're gonna be talking about here first. The living room, kitchen, then you go that way, the washroom is there, the third bedroom, second bedroom, the first bedroom, bathroom right here. I doubted they had an attic fan, which again, I'm not gonna say that so for yesterday's, I'm not gonna sit up here and say that this man didn't mention attic fans in houses back in the 70s, because that house that we had, it had an attic fan, right? We play, because there was a lot of times, depending on how hot it got, right? We didn't use the air conditioning. We used the attic fan. And then whatever fan that we had in every room, right? It kept the house cool enough. Plain and simple. Because it's a lot of y'all that gonna watch this. Y'all don't even know what the fuck an attic fan is. Y'all don't even know what an attic is 9 times out of 10. So, and then it's just like, yes, we did the double dutch, hide and go seek. We also invented a lot of shit. Hence, this, if anybody know what the fuck this is, and if you're my age, a little bit older, you already know what toy. This was the prime result of a toy that was later invented. We'll talk about this later, right? So, but let's sit back and enjoy whatever the fuck happens. Let's go.
These were a time when Black households ran on rules that were strict, sacred, and never to be questioned. These house rules shaped childhoods, taught respect, and kept families running smoothly. Here are 25 strict house rules from the 1970s that
chances are I'm not gonna go through all 25. This is my first time seeing this. Might go through all 25, but if I don't, y'all understand. Let's go.
Black kids who grew up during this era will never forget. Eating in the living room was absolutely forbidden in Black households.
Hell, eating in the living room, shit. We wasn't allowed to go in the living room. The living room was special. The living room was for guests only. God forbid if your mama didn't have the plastic on the doggone furniture. The living room was sacred. The grown-ups were in the living room. You was either in the den as a kid, right? You put like this. Depending on what time company came over. you gonna be one of three places. You was either gonna have your ass outside, and then depending on what type of parents that you had, if you had to be in when the street light came on, then guess what? Your ass was in the house, right? But so if you were in the house, you didn't the living room. No, you had no business whatsoever in the living room unless you was in there cleaning it up, right? But the thing about it though is this: you was either in the den or in your room with the door closed. You didn't come out asking mama for shit. Mama, can I go to the bathroom? It's right there. You didn't, I mean, you weren't nosy. You weren't nosy. So he was talking about eating in the living room. I'm like, shit. The house that I just told you, the houses that I grew up in, we had a living room and a den. The den is where everybody was at. The living room, like I say, company. And just know that it was some plastic on the goddamn couch. And then the little plastic stripway down the hallway, yeah, that's what the fuck you walk on. Because like the houses back then, right? Because the house I'm in now, right? You know, it's the floor, right? But back in the 70s, right, it was carpet. And if mama laid that plastic strip down, that's where the fuck you walked at. Anything outside of that plastic strip, you finna catch your ass whooping. So let's just see what the hell he got to say about this.
During the 1970s, the living room was reserved for company and special occasions, not for everyday snacking or mealtime. Parents made it clear that food stayed in the kitchen where the table was, and anyone caught sneaking a sandwich or a bag of chips into that off-limit space faced serious consequences. The furniture in the living room, often covered in plastic to keep it pristine, was too valuable to risk staining with crumbs or spills. Kids learned early that the carpet in there was not for walking on with dirty feet, let alone dropping food. Mothers worked hard to keep that room looking perfect.
Now, why he put that? Why he do that? Why he put that one clip of James Evans up there in the log cabin? No one. I mean, you see, dog, you wrong for that. You wrong in the two boys fucking in the phone booth. Let's go.
When guests arrived, and no child was going to ruin it with a popsicle or a plate of leftovers. For Black kids growing up in the 1970s, the living room might as well have been a museum, and they knew better than to bring anything edible across that invisible boundary. Being home before the streetlights came on was a rule that every Black child in the 1970s understood without question.
Okay, well, but now I put it this, I beg to differ. I mean, because shout out to Joanne Clayton and all of her kids. Shout out to my sweet in there. Jerome, Lynn, Tasha, and just like I said, you know, my mother, I mean, she's gone home to glory, right? But and I've actually already mentioned these two in previous shows that I've done. They were the best of friends. So just like I said, he did another one. He was actually really talk about he would talk about how valuable the front porch was. So it would be a lot of times like when everybody else lived by the rules. Everybody didn't have to be in the house when the street light was on. I was one of them. And then, like I say, Niecy, Tasha, Jerome, and Lynn, right? We could stay outside, you know, because either my mama was gonna watch it or Joanne Clayton was gonna watch it, right? You know, so now when either one of them went in the house, okay, then you know it's quite obvious, right? But everybody didn't have to be in the house, you know, everybody didn't have to be in the house when the street light came on. I'm just putting it out there, right? So little fat check right there, dog. I'm gonna have to, debunk that.
When those lights flickered on at dusk, it was time to stop playing, say goodbye to friends, and get inside immediately. Parents did not need to call out the window or send a sibling to fetch anyone.
Now, so here's the deal, right? I'm trying to actually really do this in a place where that, okay, like what I said earlier, right? Everybody can't catch everything that happened in the 1970s because he already talked about the street light, but every Friday night from 1979 to 1985, right? It was almost like at 7 o'clock, everybody stopped what the fuck they were doing. We were watching Dukes of Hazzard. And 9 times out of 10, the street light wasn't even on yet. Now, grant the fact, that was just on every Friday night, right? Monday through Thursday, especially during the summer months. I mean, depending on who your parents were, you'd have to be in during the when the street light came on. And all of us, we play this. We all went to our separate homes. Or if the parents allowed it, right? All of us would go to one house and we would watch the Dukes of Hazzard. That's just how it was. So it put like this. It wasn't always the street light that brought your ass in the house. You were trying to watch your doggone favorite TV show, which was the Dukes of Hazzard. Dukes of Hazzard. Let's go.
The street light served as an automatic signal that playtime was over and it was time to come home. Kids who violated this rule faced consequences. They would remember for weeks, whether that meant being grounded, getting a whipping, or losing outdoor privileges entirely. The streetlights represented the boundary between freedom and responsibility, between the neighborhood and home. Mothers and fathers trusted those lights to bring their children back safe before dark. For Black kids in the 1970s, ignoring the streetlights was not an option. That rule was etched into their minds so deeply that even as adults, they still notice when those lights flicker on and feel a pull toward home. Saying yes, ma'am, and no, sir, to all adults was a non-negotiable rule in Black households during the 1970s. Respect was not optional, and it started with how children addressed their elders. Any response to an adult that did not include these respectful phrases was met with immediate correction. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, and even strangers in the grocery store all
total agreement with that. Right, and again, I just think that a lot of what parents did or what parents were allowed to do in the 70s, all that shit went away due to certain laws. I mean, because it's just like we said, not being in the house when that street light came on. You gonna get your ass whooped. Plain and simple. So, and then put like this. Depending on who your parents were. Black mothers back in the day, they hit your ass with anything that was in arm's reach. Now, grant the fact, I ain't got the big spoon, I ain't got the big fork, but guess what? If you grew up around the same time that I did, you knew what these two things are. And then if that don't get you, right? If that don't get you, hold on. How many of y'all got hit with a goddamn fly swatter? Right? Mom already pissed off at your ass because you fanning in and out of the house, letting flies in. So she's swatting flies. And you said the wrong thing. Guess what? You were gonna get hit with the goddamn fly swat. Okay? I'm just telling you what's happening. So let's go.
Received the same level of verbal respect. Children who forgot or mumbled their responses were quickly reminded that manners mattered. The rule extended beyond just family members to include anyone older, and that meant everyone from church members to the mailman. Kids learned that the words they used reflected on their entire family, and disrespect would not be tolerated. Grandmothers especially enforced this rule with a look that could stop a child in their tracks.
And chances are, it was grandma that either hit you upside the head with the fly swatter, or the big ass spoon, big ass fork, or whatever that was in arm's reach at the time. Shit, I remember getting hit upside the head with a goddamn lotion bottle. A shoe. Yeah, I got picked up and tossed across the room because I wasn't doing what the fuck that I was doing, what the fuck I wasn't supposed to do. And it wasn't always grandma. It was always not. Sometimes it was grandma. Sometimes it was mom. I'm just gonna put it out there.
For Black kids growing up in the 1970s, yes, ma'am, and no, sir became automatic responses, ingrained so deeply that they still slip out naturally when speaking to elders today. Talking back to adults was absolutely unacceptable in Black households.
Did I not just say that? Okay, so far, it is what it is. It's going pretty good right now, right?
During the 1970s, when an adult spoke, children listened. When an adult gave an instruction, children followed it without argument, eye rolls, or muttered complaints. The idea of a child challenging or contradicting an adult was simply not tolerated, regardless of whether the child thought they were right. Parents made it clear that their word was final, and any attempt to negotiate, debate, or explain yourself was considered disrespect. The consequences for talking back ranged from stern lectures to switches and belts that reminded children exactly who was in charge. Grandmothers were particularly intolerant of sass, and kids knew that one wrong word could lead to serious trouble. This rule taught children that respect for authority started at home and extended to every adult they encountered. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to hold their tongue and to accept adult decisions without comment was an essential survival skill that shaped their character. Finishing everything on your plate was a strict requirement in Black households.
Yes, indeed, it was. I remember I was at a babysitter's house, and I forget, I don't know what it was. It might have been cabbage, it might have been Brussels sprouts. I don't know what it is, but just know right to this day, if put like this, if Brussels sprouts is brought into this house, I'll eat the motherfuckers like it's nobody's business. And it wasn't because of what the fuck. Yeah, it could be for the simple fact that I got my ass whooped because I got my ass whooped by the babysitter, which again, that's something you don't see no more. Don't hit my tie. And they motherfucker, they can be bad as fuck, right? But I never get, that woman. I'll get her name now, right? But she would not let me leave that table until I finished those Brussels sprouts. And it was like, she knew that I wasn't gonna eat too many of them. Right? At the time I didn't like how they taste, anything like that. So I ate everything else. But the Brussels sprouts I didn't eat. And for the most part, I really went to sleep at the table. Thinking that, and right to this day, I don't know why I thought that she was just gonna take the plate up and and not let me, and then just forget about it. Put it like this. Even if she did wake me up, just know it's probably gonna be. I probably was gonna get woke up to a belt, and then guess what? Get my ass whooped and still eat them damn Brussels sprouts. So yeah. So again, so right now, it's going pretty good.
Households during the 1970s. Food was not to be wasted under any circumstances, and children were expected to eat every bite of what was served to them.
Because again, at the time, right, it was just like, okay, depending on what type of job that your parents had, depending on, and then also depending on how many kids there were, right? You couldn't afford to waste food. You better eat or kill your ass being hungry. Plain and simple.
Mothers who had worked hard to prepare meals did not appreciate seeing perfectly good food pushed around on plates or scraped into the trash. Kids were reminded constantly about starving children elsewhere in the world and made to feel guilty for leaving even a few peas or a crust of bread. The clean plate rule was about more than just eating. It was about gratitude, appreciation, and understanding the value of what the family had. Parents who had grown up with less were determined to teach their children not to take food for granted. For Black kids in the 1970s, sitting at the table until the plate was empty was a common experience that taught them the importance of not wasting resources that others might have gone without. Receiving or making phone calls after a certain hour was strictly prohibited in Black.
Yes. Put like this. For me, I think I want to say it was like 8 o'clock. I think it was 8 o'clock, and then even on the weekends, anything you don't go over, you don't come to nobody's house. I don't know. I want to say my mom said anything. I want to say it was Nisi. What? Remember on the weekends? What time did Mama let y'all have company? It was because for me it was like you didn't show up at nobody's house before 12 noon. Yeah. So again, like I say, every Saturday morning, it was cleanup day, right? So anything after 12, show up to somebody's house before 12 if you want. you go get slapped the shit out of, and then she was gonna tell your mama, and then you finna catch another ass whooping. So yeah, let's go.
Households during the 1970s. The telephone was for important matters, not for endless chatting, and when evening came, that phone was off limits to children. Parents set clear boundaries about when the phone could ring, usually cutting off calls after 8 or 9 at night.
Yep.
Kids who had friends calling after hours faced embarrassment and punishment because their parents had to answer and explain the rules. The telephone was often located in a central area of the house where conversations could be monitored, and privacy was not something children were entitled to. Long phone calls during acceptable hours were also frowned upon, with parents reminding kids that other people might need to use the line. For Black families in the 1970s, the telephone represented a shared resource and a connection to the outside world that had to be respected. Kids learned that socializing had time limits and that household rules applied to every form of communication. Attending church on Sunday was not a suggestion in Black households during the 1970s. It was mandatory, and no.
Oh yeah. I mean, so far so good. Now, my younger brother, on the other hand, I swear, anytime he used to hate going to church on Sunday because he would raise hair the whole time. Right? As soon as church was over, he stopped crying. So, hey, it is what it is.
No excuse was good enough to skip service. Children woke up early, took their baths, put on their Sunday best, and sat quietly in the pew without complaint. The church was the center of community life, and families showed up together as a unit to worship, socialize, and reinforce their faith. Kids who tried to claim illness or fatigue found themselves dressed and in the car anyway, because missing church was simply not an option. Mothers and grandmothers took church attendance seriously, viewing it as essential to raising children with strong moral foundations. The services could be long and hot, especially in summer, but fidgeting or falling asleep brought swift correction from nearby adults. For Black kids in the 1970s, Sunday church was a weekly ritual that taught them discipline, patience, and the importance of spiritual community, and it has stayed with many into adulthood. Having company over when parents were not home was strictly forbidden in Black households.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, like, I mean, that was a phrase, but how many of us actually really followed that rule though? Right? It's almost like, it's almost like what my mom used to tell me, because like she would go to work, and then my clothes would already be laid out, what have you. I get up, lock the door, walk up to the bus stop, get on the bus, whatever. Come home, and then she would always say, "Hey, don't you let nobody in this house until I get off work." She would always get off around about 4:35, right? So, and everybody was like, "Can you have motherfucker be knocking on?" I can't have no company. I mean, because my mama was one of those type. She was one of those type that she goes sneak and hide, and I'll never forget it. I had a whole bunch of people in the house, and I actually really lost track of time, right? And so when she come in and we all in the house, and I'll never forget it, she's like, "Listen, if your last name is not Harris, get out." And everybody, they knew who my mom was. My mom was the old crazy one, right? And so and I knew I had fucked up, right? And I almost started to go outside with him. One of the worst ass whoopers I ever caught. Okay, let's go.
During the 1970s, the rule was simple and absolute. If the adults were gone, no friends were allowed inside the house under any circumstances. Parents did not trust what might happen when children were unsupervised with guests, and they were not about to come home to find their house used as a hangout spot. Kids knew that violating this rule could result in a severe punishment, and neighbors were often watching to report any suspicious activity. Even cousins or friends who lived nearby were not exempt from this restriction. The house was to remain.
Now, the only problem about that is that everybody was at work. My parents were at work. Everybody else's parents was at work, so but sometimes we did and sometimes we did. So okay, I get that. That's understandable.
Remained empty and quiet until the parents returned, and kids were expected to entertain themselves without inviting anyone in. This rule taught children about responsibility and the importance of respecting the home. For Black kids in the 1970s, the fear of being caught with company when parents were away was real, and most would not dare risk the consequences. Completing homework before going outside to play was an enforced rule in Black households in the 1970s.
Now, that rule never applied to me because I never had homework, because again, I was always one of those ones that I always like to go outside and play. So whatever the teacher had, I just know, I just want to, but like this, I don't want to say that I was the class clown, but just know that I did my work before everybody else. And just know that all of my work will be done correctly. Right? So I'll go out, whatever, and then I go to my friend's house, whatever. Well, I got to do my homework. I'm like, And I'm like, damn, you couldn't do that shit in class. Slow motherfucker, you. I mean, but I wasn't cussing, you know, as no kid, though. But hey, y'all get what I'm going with this. Let's go.
Parents took education seriously, and they made it clear that schoolwork came first, no matter how nice the weather was or how loudly friends were calling from the street. Kids came home.
If he don't say, take your school clothes off and put your play clothes on, motherfucker, you weren't born in the 70s. Okay, let's see what happens.
From school, sat at the kitchen table, and finished their assignments before they could even think about stepping outside. Mothers and fathers checked homework carefully, making sure it was done properly and not rushed just to get outside faster. The rule taught children that education was the priority and that play was earned, not given freely. Kids who tried to sneak out before finishing their work faced consequences that made them think twice the next time. For Black families in the 1970s, homework time was sacred and non-negotiable
like
because parents understood
monotone.
that education was the path to a better future. That discipline around schoolwork shaped study habits that many carried into adulthood. Keeping elbows off the table during meals was a strict rule of etiquette in Black households during the 1970s. Table manners were not optional, and children were taught to sit properly, chew with their mouths closed, and never lean on the table like they had no home training. Parents and grandparents watched carefully during meals, correcting posture and reminding kids that how they ate reflected on their upbringing. Elbows on the table were considered rude.
Now, this rule, it's like as far as like my household, you know, it really wasn't a big issue. But when, say, like if I went down the road to the Yancey's or if I went across the street, you know, to the Claytons, you know, they all sit down, they eat, you know, so yeah, I learned all of the table manners at other people's house. Okay, so let's go.
Lazy and disrespectful to the food and to the cook who had prepared it. Kids who forgot this rule were quickly reminded with a tap on the arm or a sharp word that brought them back to proper form. The dinner table was where manners were practiced and perfected, preparing children for meals outside the home where they would represent their families. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to keep their elbows off the table was part of a larger education in respect and self-presentation that stayed with them forever. Running inside the house was strictly forbidden in Black households during the 1970s. The house was not a playground, and children were expected to walk calmly from room to room like civilized people. The rule was about respect for the home and for neighbors. Parents worried about broken lamps, knocked over furniture, and the noise that running feet made on hardwood floors or thin apartment walls. Kids who forgot this rule and tore through the hallway were stopped immediately with a shout that froze them in their tracks. Grandmothers especially had no patience for children running wild inside, and their stern warnings carried.
Now, the whole deal with running in the house was never a big issue. It was always like, hey, you either gonna keep your ass outside or stay in the house. You ain't gonna be swinging my swing door. You ain't gonna be swinging my screen door back and forth every fucking 30 seconds. You either gonna keep your ass in the house or keep your ass outside until the street light comes on or when everybody else came to the damn house. That was how it was with me in the 1970s.
Weight that kids remembered. Outside was for running and playing, but inside required a different kind of behavior. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to control their energy and move calmly through the house was part of growing up with discipline. That rule saved countless decorations and eardrums from the chaos children could create, asking permission. Before opening the refrigerator was a rule that controlled snacking in Black households during the 1970s. The refrigerator was not a free-for-all buffet where children could grab whatever they wanted whenever they felt like eating. Kids had to ask before they opened that door, and the answer was often no if dinner was coming soon or if the food inside was meant for something specific. Mothers kept careful track of what was in the refrigerator and had plans for every item, from the eggs reserved for breakfast to the lunch meat that had to last until payday.
Yeah.
Children who raided the refrigerator without permission faced consequences and lectures about wasting food and not respecting household resources. The rule taught kids that food was a privilege, not a right, and that someone else controlled the distribution. For Black families in the 1970s, the refrigerator represented the family budget in physical form, and opening it without asking was like spending money without permission. Slamming doors was absolutely unacceptable behavior in Black households during the 1970s, whether a child was angry.
Yeah, if you slam the door, that was slam the door if you want to. You finna catch your ass whooped. All right, so hey,
In a hurry or just careless, a slammed door brought immediate consequences. Parents viewed door slamming as disrespect for the house itself and for everyone who lived in it. The noise was disruptive, the damage potential was real, and the attitude behind it was not tolerated. Kids who slammed doors in frustration were made to go back and close that door properly, sometimes multiple times until they got it right. Grandmothers would emerge from wherever they were in the house to address the situation personally, making sure the child understood that their home was not a place for tantrums. The rule taught emotional control and respect for shared living spaces. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to close doors quietly, even when upset, was a lesson in managing feelings and understanding that acting out had consequences that were not worth the momentary satisfaction of expressing anger. Washing hands before every meal was an enforced hygiene rule in Black households during the 1970s.
Well, put it like this, it was a rule that was enforced, and it's a rule that I enforce with my grandkids, right to this day. So, like a lot of stuff that you were taught, you grew up, you had kids, you taught them, they had kids, which are now your grandkids, and you teach them the exact same shit. So let's go. So far, so good. I'm still looking for that one that he ain't mentioned yet. Hold on.
Children could not sit down at the table until they had gone to the bathroom, washed their hands with soap, and shown their clean palms to their mother for inspection. Dirty hands were unacceptable, and kids who tried to sneak past this requirement were sent back immediately. Parents understood that children spent their days touching everything from playground equipment to each other, and none of that dirt belonged at the dinner table. The hand washing ritual was quick but thorough, and mothers could tell the difference between a real wash and a quick rinse under the faucet. This rule was about cleanliness, health, and teaching children habits that would serve them throughout their lives. For Black kids in the 1970s, the pre-meal hand washing became automatic, a ritual so ingrained that they still feel wrong sitting down to eat without doing it first, even as adults decades later. Respecting elders was a cornerstone rule in Black households during the 1970s, and this respect extended beyond just parents and grandparents to include older cousins, aunts, uncles, and any adult in the community.
So far, so good. He's going pretty good.
Age carried authority, and children were expected to defer to anyone older than themselves without question. Older cousins who were just a few years ahead could give instructions that younger.
But at the same time, you can actually really look at this as being saying yes, ma'am, no, yes, ma'am, no, sir. I mean, he said that earlier, so it's just like okay, with that, as a kid, shit, everybody's your damn elder, plain and simple, right? But I get it, versus older siblings, right? I mean, I'm like, okay, whatever. But as far as like your mom, your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, yeah, that's what you did. You gave them that respect, regardless of how fucked up they might have been. Okay, so let's go.
Younger children had to follow, and reporting to parents that an older cousin was mean or unfair rarely resulted in sympathy. The hierarchy was clear and absolute, with children
Now that right there, I mean, now depending on again, yeah, I'm gonna say that's about 50-50, because sometimes the older siblings can be like just straight crude, right? And then you gotta be like, and then the parents that have to get on the older sibling, hey, calm the fuck down. Because guess what? You can still get your ass whooped. So extremely bad picture right there. Okay. So I just thought I'd put that out there. So let's go.
at the bottom and authority increasing with age. Kids learn to listen, obey, and show deference to anyone who had more years of life experience. This rule created structure in extended
Just because now, listen, just because you older don't mean, it's just like what that one did with Rich Brian said when he was doing his Mudbone character. He was like, everybody, you listen to they ain't all fools. See, you don't get to be old being no fool. But guess what? Some people get to be old and they still a fool. Right? Just because you old don't mean you know shit. I can't tell you how many times I done said that. Right? But for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna let him have it. Okay, let's go.
families and communities where multiple generations often live close together. For Black kids in the 1970s, understanding their place in the age-based hierarchy taught them humility, patience, and the value of listening to those who came before them. Completing chores before asking for privileges was a strict rule in Black households.
Okay, that's the same thing as doing homework and all that kind of stuff. So
During the 1970s,
he repeating a lot.
Children could not request permission and sent to finish the job first. This rule taught children that life.
Now again, Monday through Friday really wasn't a big deal, but Saturday morning, Mama woke up everybody in the house. The house was gonna be clean before you carried your ass outside. Now, if he's acting like, I'm not gonna sit up here and say that, hey, look, when you say that, okay, so what do you mean? I mean, because we can say the exact same thing about as far as like, hey, doing your homework before you go outside, right? But so again, I can be like, okay, well, where you going with this? Where you going with this?
Required effort, and that enjoying free time was something to be earned through contribution. The lesson extended beyond the household to prepare kids for a world where work came before reward. For Black families,
and now that I really stop and think about it for a minute, right? There's a lot of people didn't follow this rule. I mean, because a lot of girls that grew up in the 70s, right? Especially like with my wife and that. My wife would cook her ass off. Now, I really don't know at what age that Mama Clayton had her in the kitchen, but apparently that shit paid off. I'm just saying, a lot of it, you can be like, okay, it happened to the majority, but it didn't happen to everybody. So hey, let's go.
In the 1970s, the chores first rule was about building character and teaching children that everyone in the household.
So again, that's okay. So in a sense, that's two, and this shit is almost over with. So because It's what happened with my mom. My mom was in the kitchen, help cooking breakfast, right? And then, now, great fact, my mama had 2 boys, so she couldn't do that with me. She couldn't do that with Byron. But me being the type of person that I am, once I got of age, right? You know, even though she didn't teach me, but I watched. I watched a lot of stuff what my mom did in the kitchen. I watched a lot of stuff what she did when it came to washing clothes, cleaning up the house. All that I learned just by watching. And then when I felt like that I had watched enough, then I asked my mom, hey, can I actually really participate in, in some of the activities? And she did. I mean, she always did it, sometimes she would like that. Put like this, I would either season the chicken or I put, grease on the skillet or whatever, or I'll, flour up the chicken or whatever. And then she would watch me, with that watchful eye. She would watch how she would, she'd take my little hand, whatever, and she would like, okay, drop it, and then I would drop the chicken into the grease or whatever. So again, a lot of stuff that I learned just by watching. So in a sense, I'm gonna see where you gonna go with this, because actually this is rule number 2 that I'm looking for.
Had a role to play in its maintenance. Rolling eyes or giving attitude to adults was behavior that brought swift consequences in Black households.
Okay, that could be like a subtitle under slamming doors, because once the eye rolling came, then you stormed off and then you slammed the door. So for the most part, okay, that's the same shit. Okay.
During the 1970s, sass, sighing twice before showing attitude again. The rule taught emotional regulation and the understanding that respect was communicated through more than just words. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to mask their frustration and respond to adults without visible attitude was essential. Survival training that shaped how they navigated authority throughout their lives. The poker face became a skill many mastered early. Turning off lights when leaving a room was a strict household rule in Black families during the 1970s.
And conserving energy, right? Or, oh man, see, here comes some more.
Electricity cost money and parents' utility bills, and leaving lights on was essentially throwing their hard-earned them through repetition and consequence, a habit that many still practice religiously as adults today. Taking a bath every night before bed was a non-negotiable rule in Black households during the 1970s. No matter how.
Okay, again, that's another one. You would always listen. If you didn't want to wash your ass, you an assy motherfucker. Plain and simple. And it shows to this day. I done talked about that too much already. So hey, motherfucker, won't take no bath. Get your little ass in the tub. It's almost like that shit with Bill Cosby said. It's like it's summertime, right? I'm at this end, my wife is at this end, and the children, they eating and dancing and all that kind of stuff. So it was just like, okay, so my wife then looked the situation over, and she could tell like the children are not going to eat anymore. She said, you fooled around long enough. She says, all right, you fooled around long enough. She said, everybody get up from the table. Then he looked at somebody else and said, my wife says this every night. Everybody get up from the table, go upstairs, take off all your clothes, get into the shower. Please turn on the water. You have to tell them to do that, because if they don't, they'll just wander around the tub. And then get out and get into bed. Please use soap. That's mostly for my son. Say, rinse yourselves off, dry yourselves off, put on clean pajamas, get into the bed and go to sleep. So I mean, yeah, just because they in there, motherfucker, don't mean they washing their ass. Plain and simple. I had the same problem with my son. He cut the water on, and then he just standing in there, right? And I called him like, "Wash your ass. Standing in the shower ain't gonna do nothing for you." Okay.
Tired a child was, or how late the evening had gotten, climbing into bed without bathing was not allowed.
Hell no.
The nightly black families in the 1970s.
Now, put it like this. I never had a problem. I always wanted to wash my ass. And I'll wash my ass right today. I mean, just to show you, how, because see the crazy awkward. I'll never forget it. I was watching this one cartoon. I want to say it was Scooby-Doo, I think. And then somebody came in or whatever. And so the motherfucker, he had took a bath or whatever. And he brushed his, I'm about to say brush his face. He washed his face, brushed his teeth, got his hair already. And so the thing was like, why you doing all that? You finna go to bed. So I'm like, look, I like to be on the ready. If I'm having a dream, right? I don't want to be in my dream funky. I meet a nice girl and she look at me. Oh, you done wash your face and brush your teeth. So I'm good. And even right there, I think the same way. I mean, it's just one of those days, I mean, why not go to bed smelling good? Ain't no dude that come in your dream, or ain't no woman that come and go. They don't want to smell no nasty motherfucker. Plain and simple. All right? Shit, let's go.
The nightly bath was about more than hygiene. It was about discipline, self-care, and that. Kids who lingered nearby, hoping to catch interesting information, children were expected to be elsewhere, not listening in, not asking questions, and certainly not offering opinions.
That goes
Private conversations were exactly that. Kids who lingered nearby, hoping to catch interesting information, were sent away to mind their own business and not eavesdrop on adult conversations was part of understanding their place in the family hierarchy. Wearing house shoes or slippers inside was mandatory in Black households during the 1970s. Children changed out of their street shoes the moment they stepped through the front door and put on designated indoor footwear.
Okay, so he getting kind of close. Okay, I mean,
the rule kept outside dirt from being tracked through the house, and it protected floors that mothers worked hard to keep clean. House shoe rule was about cleanliness, health, and respecting the home environment that everyone shared. The habit became so ingrained that many adults still change into slippers immediately upon arriving home. Speaking properly and using correct grammar was expected in Black households during the 1970s.
Again, that's the same thing as saying yes, ma'am, no, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. I mean, no, you overlap.
Parents corrected children who used and understood the difference. Speaking properly at home prepared kids for classrooms, job interviews, and situations where first impressions mattered. Parents who had faced discrimination understood that language could be a barrier or a bridge, and they wanted their children ready for either situation. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to code switch between home language and formal speech was a survival skill taught through constant correction at the dinner table. Whistling or singing at the dinner table was not allowed in Black households during the 1970s.
Where the fuck was you doing? Okay, I mean, you could have conversation. Okay,
Mealtime was for eating and family conversation without any unnecessary noise, from tapping utensils to clicking tongues. The dinner table had its own code of conduct that children.
For the most part, okay, I get it good, because motherfuckers, they get to the. Look, we get it. The food is good. It's motherfucking outstanding. But I don't even hear all that. Oh no, And don't blow your nose at the damn dinner table neither. That's ground for apple. Let's go.
Learned through correction and repetition. Grandmothers, especially, had no patience for musical interruptions during meals, viewing them as signs of restlessness and poor home training. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning to sit quietly and eat without making a spectacle was part of mastering the manners that would serve them at tables beyond their own family home. Keeping the good furniture covered and untouched was a rule that protected the living room in Black households, the den, or their bedrooms for everyday activities, while the living room remained a showcase of the family's best possessions. Sitting on that plastic-covered furniture meant sitting up straight and being on your best behavior, as if company were already present. For Black families in the 1970s, the good furniture represented aspiration and pride, and children learned early that some things in life require special care and respect. Calling adults by their first names was absolutely forbidden in Black households during the 1970s.
Okay, again, okay, see, you.
Every adult was addressed with the title of respect. Children who slipped and used the first name were immediately corrected, sometimes publicly and with embarrassment that taught them not to make that mistake again. The rule created a clear distinction between children and adults, reinforcing the age-based hierarchy that governed Black family and community life. For Black kids in the 1970s, learning the proper way to address adults was essential social training that demonstrated their upbringing and their family values to everyone they met. Which of these strict house rules from the 1970s hit closest to home for you? Drop a comment below with the rule you remember most, hit that like button, and
Okay, so let's just see what everybody else is saying, because no running, yeah. This is, yeah. Okay, so a lot of people, but okay, so that's what a lot of people say now. Now he did another one, as far as like creativity, like with black kids, right? With the stickball and all that kind of stuff. But before I actually really go into that, taking your school clothes off, putting your play clothes on. That's what I had to do. You never played in your school clothes. That was that was one. And then as far as like no talking on the telephone and it's thunder and lightning outside. That was another one that you didn't do. Right. So that was, so for the most part, that was at least two that that I grew up, in the 70s and going into the early 80s. Now, as far as like ingenuity, the summer months, they're like right now, it's hotter than a motherfucker right now. So basically what we did in the late 70s, going into the 80s, right? Now y'all see this right here. This is a goddamn spray ball. Now, I got Stay Flow in here, but y'all know y'all got the actual spray. And then if you adjust the knob just enough, then you got the long string, right? So now, great the fact, for like this, now whatever type of stuff that your mama had in this, right? You wait till it was damn near empty. So it was either this or the motherfucking 409 bottle, or like when I grew up, it was the Jerry Curl or whatever. So whatever little spray activator that was left, right? You would take the top and you put a little water, put a little piece of paper, and then you get the long string that way. And the water hose, those were our super soakers. So it was a lot of stuff that we invented just out of motherfucking just straight out creativity. It brought on the super circle, the super circle, the super soaker, right? This wire hanger right here, right? If you're old enough, you already knew what the fuck they was used for. Put like this. Get you a wire hanger, 2 rubber bands, and a piece of fabric. It was always a piece of old belt and you made sure that the holes was in it, because you would have to, you break this motherfucker down and you fix it in a way. Those were our slingshots. And you see them shits in the sports stores right to this day. You know, not to say that we invented the slingshot. I'm not saying that. But it's just simple fact that mom, dad couldn't, they either couldn't afford a slingshot, or they was like, well, no, motherfucker, we already know what the fuck you finna do with it. You gonna break out somebody's damn window or poke somebody's eye out, right? So, and then even with the roller skates, the shoe part, right? The shoe part got raggedy. We cut the shoe part off, get you a piece of board, and if you can nail it down, it wasn't a skateboard. It wasn't a skateboard. You set your ass down on that piece of wood, and then if you wanted to go to either side, you were gonna do this or you gonna do that. Now that shit is a motherfucking professional sport. So a lot of stuff that we did in the 70s, late 70s, going into the 80s, right? I really, right to this day, I think a lot of us could have actually really went into the Olympics and won, because we used to do the long jump. I mean, great the fact we had a ramp. We always had a ramp because, again, we were too busy watching Dukes of Hazzard. So put it like this: if we didn't have our bicycles jumping around, right? We use that same ramp to actually like really just jump or any type of device just to see how far that we can jump. And a lot of us was jumping anywhere from 20 to 25 feet, sometimes even 30. So all of us that was in the hood, right, we could have like participated in the Olympics, and we'd have won every motherfucking year. Plain and simple. So a lot of the stuff that he was talking about, besides being so goddamn monotone, right? I almost went to sleep on some of that shit, but it's always good to actually go back and look at, okay, what you did when you was in the 70s. And then, just like I say, a lot of the shit that we did, I'm surprised that any of us, right to this day, even actually survived some of that shit. I mean, because the 70s was a different time frame. You didn't have a whole lot of stuff. You stayed outside, and then we created a lot of shit. We had got shit. Climbing trees ain't good enough for us. So we started climbing on top of the house. And then once we got that down, then we're like, oh, we're going to jump from house to house. And then, and then we had the bicycles, right? We go down, we ride up under the bridge, we going through the sewer tunnels, and we did a lot of shit. Great fact, we didn't know what the fuck was in there. I mean, especially when the movie Alligator came out, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe a big ass alligator down there waiting on us, right? But we went anyway. We did a lot of dangerous shit as kids. I mean, again, all of us. The Gen X factor. The smartest, we were the most smartest, when I say smart, we were the most resourceful. We took what we had and we created what we did, and we all had fun about it. Plain and simple, right? Good time, and then just like I say, and everybody watched after each other's child, right? If you didn't know where your child was at, my mama would get on. Well, shit, somebody was always calling my mama. Tell me, hey girl, he over here at the house eating dinner with us. Right? So, so shout out to Mama Clayton, shout out to Mama Yancey. I mean, because I think 25 pounds belong to Mama Yancey, and I think about 25 pounds belongs to Mama Clayton. So, and then, of course, there's my own mom. Maybe she rests in power. Right, but that's all I got. I just I feel like that Grace Uncle had to throw his 2 cents in there. So with that being said, hey, tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell Big Dan, tell Big Bertha, your uncle, your auntie, your grandma, your papa, motherfucker next door, across the street, around the corner. Paulus Harris, aka Crazy Uncle. I'm gonna holler at y'all.